Star Wars Episode 9 is set to offer tons of new experiences, twists, and turns by writer and director J.J. Abrams. This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, one thing that I personally am very curious about when it comes to this film is exactly what J.J. Abrams will be doing with the character of Luke Skywalker in this movie. Now, we do know that Mark Hamill is working very hard as of right now throughout the month of January, leading all the way into February for his scenes for Episode 9. Now, these past couple of months or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film when it comes to some of the set leaks, the set designs, the concept art and storyboard descriptions, etc., one of which has all to do with a confrontational sequence between both Supreme Leader Snoke and Luke Skywalker. Specifically, a description of Luke Skywalker wielding a green lightsaber in his ceremonial robes. Luke appears to be inside of the wreckage of his temple after the fire. The next goes after Luke witnessing an image of Snoke, and it's described that Snoke is laughing. The sequence is described as a confrontational scene where both Luke and Snoke are exchanging heavy dialogue with each other about Luke's failure and Snoke's victory. Another sequence involves Luke taking a swing at Snoke only for Luke to walk right through him. It's revealed that Snoke is performing the same power he did in The Last Jedi with Rey and Kylo Ren. The last goes over Snoke now beginning to vanish while Luke regroups with R2-D2. So I really wanted to go over a couple of parts about all of this in Episode 9. Now, we do know that J.J. Abrams plans to incorporate a lot of flashback sequences in this movie in order to really tell us the story in between the events of the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy itself. Now, it's actually described about the temple wreckage of Luke Skywalker going through it and walking through it and seeing the damage that has been done by his nephew, where the apparition of Supreme Leader Snoke eventually appears in front of Luke. Now, what I find very intriguing is that Snoke is also able to use this ability on the character of Luke Skywalker, the Force Bond ability that he actually used against both Kylo Ren and Rey by essentially fusing their minds together. So this is a confrontational scene, you know, Luke versus Snoke, a very interesting sequence for sure, where Luke eventually is able to swing his green lightsaber at Snoke, where he realizes that he's actually not really there. So I don't know about you guys, but I think that the real way to do things, if they are to have a scene between both Snoke and Luke, is to do this physically, where they're both actually in the same exact environment. I feel like that it would be more suspenseful like that, it would be more action-driven, and I feel like it would just feel more tangible to have the two characters actually there as opposed to Luke Skywalker being manipulated with when it comes to his mind, and what Snoke is doing with the character of Luke. Now, this is also described as a sequence that actually goes over Luke's failure and Snoke's victory, with the two characters exchanging a lot of dialogue with each other. So that was the biggest question of the sequel trilogy, right? A lot of people have always been wondering exactly how do Luke and Leia know Supreme Leader Snoke? Even in The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker mentions, you know, Snoke had already turned his heart. How does he really know Snoke? How does he know of Supreme Leader Snoke? You know, that's the thing. Luke Skywalker has been in hiding for a very long time after the events of the whole entire burning of the temple situation. So it really does make one wonder now, is this going to show us exactly how Luke learned about Supreme Leader Snoke? It seems as so. Now, if we look at everything that has been going on in this movie, we do know that J.J. Abrams really is taking a stance on flashbacks, something that he actually brought into the Star Wars franchise, starting off with The Force Awakens. Rian Johnson picked up on it in his own way in The Last Jedi, where it wasn't done through the use of a vision, it was just done through the use of a traditional flashback format in an actual movie. So now that J.J. Abrams is back, it really does bring one to question exactly how the flashbacks will be done. Are they going to be in the form of visions through the eyes of some of our main characters, or are they going to be done in a light where it's very similar to what Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi, where it's basically just a typical flashback not caused by anything but only for the audience to see? Now, the only thing that I find very intriguing is how exactly Luke Skywalker is able to communicate with Supreme Leader Snoke. You know, that's one thing for sure. You would imagine that a person like Luke Skywalker, who is so powerful, would be able to resist that force bond between both Snoke and Luke. Now, I think that what's really going on here is that, like I said, this is definitely J.J. Abrams' way of telling us exactly how Luke learned about Supreme Leader Snoke, how he knows Snoke, and kind of just building up that relationship between both good and evil in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which is something that I think needs to be incorporated a whole lot more into the sequel trilogy, and with Episode 9 considered to be very high quality and very high budget. By the way, it's going to be a very high budget movie. It's said to cost a whole lot more than that of both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. So you can only imagine how large, alright, how big the scale of this movie really is going to be. Even Kevin Smith has actually talked about this before, that it's going to have the biggest set out of Star Wars history. You know, he has actually seen this set, and it's the biggest set that he has ever seen in his life. So this movie does have a lot of things going for it when it comes to flashbacks and telling different story elements in between the originals and the sequels, etc. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.